Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of LevelUp Live. My name is Tony Bryan and I am your host. And I'm very excited and looking forward to a discussion today with Shaun St. Hill. Shaun, thank you so much for joining us today.
Tony, it's a pleasure. Great to be on your podcast.
Yeah, so Shaun's a new friend of CyberUp, and we're still getting to know each other a little bit, but excited that he has joined us as an adjunct instructor. I know he's going to jump into that a little bit, but so just so everybody gets to know a bit more, I want to introduce yourself and where you're from. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So again, Tony, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you here today on the podcast. It's a wonderful opportunity being connected to an organization like CyberUp, and you alluded to that. And so let's start there. So as you mentioned, I am an adjunct instructor for one of the cybersecurity cohorts here at CyberUp. The cohort will be going through a 6-month program to eventually gain their Security Plus certification. And so it's an honor to be able to walk alongside these students, these members of the cohort. A little bit more about myself in cyber. Beyond that, I've had the opportunity to work with real estate companies and nonprofits on a number of their cybersecurity initiatives. I'm also the host of a cybersecurity podcast called Tech and Main Presents, where we've shared over 200 episodes with folks from Rapid7 to Coca-Cola and a myriad of other companies. And so really my thing is, Tony, just giving back, right? It's about what you can give, not what you can take. And so that sums me up.
I enjoy the aspect of giving back, right? It's an important, I think, element to the security industry that is one of those things that I have found, as a veteran who's been out for quite a few years, it is the closest I've seen to military outside of the military within this community. It's been awesome, right? And it's the resilience and I think desire of people like Shaun, like yourself, that are willing to kind of give back and pay it forward. So appreciate that.
Oh, so you're welcome.
So we've had a little love fest here, which is great. But let's jump into the serious stuff, right? Like, we're the goal of today is to have a little discussion around the MGM and Caesars breaches, right? There was a lot of loss, a lot of things, and I think a lot of lessons to be learned through that scenario. So let's just jump in, Shaun. Like, tell us what happened, right? Let's start with the simple stuff, like what happened to have a breach.
Yeah, so let's talk about the unlucky and unfortunate incident that happened with MGM and Caesars. See what I did there? Unlucky. Anyway, so yeah, I will stick to my day job. And
I thought, for the record, it was fantastic. I liked the joke. It was good.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. No, but in all seriousness, so for those that aren't terribly familiar with the MGM and Caesar cyber incidents, you're probably going to go back 4 to 5 weeks ago. So that first or second week of September, ironically, you had MGM. I think it was the morning of September 10th, actually. So think about this. You're flying into Vegas. You're there for a symposium, a conference. You're there meeting friends, what have you. And you're checking into the Bellagio. Right? And you've got that digital room key on your phone, and you can't get into your room, Tony. So you're like, what's going on? So that kind of frames what was happening. This was a real-time inconvenience. This was, people, descending on Vegas for a variety of reasons at different MGM properties, not being able to, play slots, get into their room, etc. And so that's what was going on the morning of September 10th, right? Fast forward a few days and insert Caesars. Caesars alerts the SEC through a filing that they had been the victims of a cyber incident, right? And we now know that those two incidents had people, threat actors, working together to undermine the systems of both MGM and Caesars. So that, at a very high level, is what happened with each of those respective gaming and entertainment companies. Because when you think about it, hospitality, right? We all travel, right? We're staying somewhere that's not our home. We're on business, leisure, what have you. And so the hospitality industry is always one of those top industries, along with healthcare, right? Where malfeasance, threat actors, bad people basically are looking to do damage. And yeah, MGM and Caesars are two of the latest victims in that hospitality industry space.
So I can't help but think of the movie Hitch. Not Hitch. What was the movie with Will Smith and Margot Robbie where they were doing,
Oh,
why I don't know why I should have thought about this beforehand. It was a great reference, and it's missing.
I know that I know the movie. I'm just not thinking of the title offhand.
They were going to major events, the Super Bowls and horse races, and setting up like elaborate kind of hacking schemes, right? What you're describing,
Yes.
to like fraud and defraud people of what they were there for. So from everything I've read, this was ransomware. Is that fair?
That is fair, 1,000% accurate.
So walk us through, right? So you kind of went day one, day two, and we figured it out. Like, what happens, right? What happens next? We file with SEC, we make the announcement. There's initial shock, but what plays into it the next step?
Well, so let's look at it from this standpoint, right? You, as the IT group, IT director, you're now in the midst of, having your company's name and reputation, across the media, across social platforms. You're out there. But what exactly happened? What brought us to the point of MGM and Caesars having to be the latest victims of a cyber incident in the hospitality industry? Interestingly enough, both of these entities, Caesars and MGM, had third-party IT providers that were servicing these companies. They were the Trojan horse, if you will, or the entry into their respective networks. So threat actors were able to use something called social engineering, which, Tony, in layman's terms, that's me calling up, pretending to be someone that I'm not, and with a sufficient amount of information and a sufficient amount of influence, I'm able to get passwords reset. I'm able to get access to information that I shouldn't have. And then those threat actors, once they had that information, once they were able to call into the call center and pretend to be Tony or Shaun, once they had that information, they then were able to access the network. They have that privileged level of access now, and they're able to get in and do whatever it is they want, which is essentially to take private and personal information of the guests, employees, and other other folks that are associated with MGM and Caesars. They're taking that data and they're encrypting it, right? Or they're locking it down, and then they are threatening the organizations to release that, and that is where we get the ransom, right? So I've now got this information, I've now got this data, and I am now threatening to release it and use it nefariously, and that ransom is typically in the millions of dollars. So Caesars, they decided to work with the threat actors, and they paid, I think it was $15 million to get the decryption key to be able to get access back to the information. MGM to date, they've stated that they have not paid the ransom, and so they've had about 10 million in cyber-related costs, but then beyond that, they're declaring that there's about 100 million in losses due to people not being able to book travel with them, et cetera, et cetera. So,
well, I think it's frightening, right? And I don't think it's the first time that I know of that third party vendors, be a support service, right, or an organization has the tendency that they're the one getting reached, and the organization have an issue, right, where they're coming in. Our way for that, right? That's all I kind of first thought. Like, if I order an Caesars, why am I sure that my people I'm bringing into our business have standards, or they have a specific set of kind of protocols that we're enforcing or holding them standard to for these types of things, right? There's got to be a shared risk or fault for this. If it wasn't just one, how does that kind of play out within those organizations?
So typically, what those third-party providers, and Tony, let's actually push a pin and deal with something that you mentioned really quickly, which is the fact that this isn't the first time a third party has been the culprit, if you will, or the entryway for a threat actor to get into someone's network environment. I mean, we can go back to Target in, what was it, maybe 2014.
Yeah. I was getting ready. That was HVAC, right? HVAC.
Yes,
Target. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you go back to maybe 2017, 2018 with Marriott, right? They had purchased another company, and it was that purchased company who was working with, I think it was Sabre, maybe, another third party, right? And it's so interesting to me because and this is my opinion, right? This is just Shaun St. It's interesting to me that when companies are bringing in third-party providers, it's almost as if they are offloading, and there's this sigh of relief. Oh, wow. Okay, I don't need a full-time employee to do my patching or look at logs or anything like that. Oh, wow, there's this other company. They've got great recommendations, and they come highly recommended, and so I can just offload that responsibility. But what they fail to realize, and I think is so imperative, is these companies are an extension of you, right? So when my kid goes to school, one of the things that we tell her is, remember your last name, right? You're a member of this family. And so the way you conduct yourself, the way you do your work, all of that, people are looking, and they will ultimately tie that back to your parents. And so in that same way, when you are bringing in a third-party provider, whether it's HVAC, whether it's someone that's going to be doing your patching for you, whatever it is, they are representing you. And so what does that mean? That means that you cannot just leave them to their own devices. When you're bringing in that third-party provider to do your patching and to do SIEM work for you, you have to make sure that they are held to the same security standards that your organization is, if not more so, right? Getting into, finding out what exactly are they doing? How do they handle incidents, right? What is their incident response plan? How are they training their employees, right? So awareness training. These are all things that we cannot just assume are being done, or assume, are being covered. We have to be vigilant and diligent to make sure that our providers, are as concerned or more concerned about our environment than we are.
So we early on through the work we were doing, we were working with some organizations around doing that, what you're describing, right? How do we create standards in which we would ask vendors to come in to do, and maybe CMMC, right? And I'm never remember the actual acronym, cybersecurity maturation. Yes, I don't remember that.
Exactly. It's okay.
It's the intent of CMMC is to standardize security best practices for advanced manufacturing, right? And have protocol. Do you envision that at some point that is just a norm, right? Where sectors, I know we have FS ISACs and healthcare ISACs, but it still doesn't address vendor expectations and those types of relationships. Do we get to that point, you think, in the future?
I honestly do. I mean, when you look at the state of California, right, and they created that that law, which basically says, I think it was back in 2020, it said if you are doing business in California and you have the personal information of anyone that resides in this state, you have to allow them the ability to question you where you're storing that data. And if they want that data removed, you not only have to remove it, but you have to prove it, right? So there are standards in place to protect consumers. I do envision a time and place where you as a third-party provider will have to attest to the fact that you are meeting certain security standards. And there's actually traces of that now, right? Where Tony, let's say you and I are startup founders, right? And we want to provide, our service. We have this software that a large corporation can use, and so we're vying, for that logo, right? That large corporation in their SOC report, they're going to want to know from us, hey, Shaun and Tony, what are you doing from a cybersecurity perspective, right, to make sure that when we welcome you into our environment, that you are, that you're bug free, as simple as that may sound. Like, what have you done to ensure that you are meeting certain cybersecurity requirements, cybersecurity standards? So, long answer to your short question, Tony. Yeah. I do see that being locked down and concretized, in a much more compelling way.
Yeah, and I apologize for bouncing back and forth. My Wi-Fi is not great, so I keep hopping off camera. See it helps.
All good, sir. All good.
2 questions. I have a random question, a couple to check here. The breaches in MGM and Caesars fresh the of B-side of the hacker conferences that happen in Las Vegas every single year. Do you think there is a correlation between the timeliness of those conferences and the breaches between MGM and Caesars deep dive, or just completely coincidental?
So here's how I'll answer that. When so some information has come out from Caesars where their breach in particular, the forensics, the analysis, they were able to find out that their incident actually occurred sometime in August, like early to mid-August, and then they were aware of it September 7th, and then there's August 23rd, somewhere in there. So suffice it to say, I think it's obviously it's I would say it's more coincidental. nefarious is a 24/7 thing, right? It's, evil doesn't sleep, right? Those who want to do us ill, they're thinking of ways of doing that, all hours of the day, right? There's that saying that it's always 5 o'clock somewhere, right? That same train of thought applies to the threat actors. Like they're always looking for opportunities to enrich themselves at our expense. So that's my take on that.
I actually read an article this week, right, where there was some authentic and genuine concern across the country, right? So we've organizations like ours and degree programs that exist. We have thrust tens of thousands of people that are trained right into this industry, and there's a good percentage that are struggling to find jobs, right? And then does it become a matter of time where some of these folks that are struggling to break into a corporate gig decide to go to the dark side rather than the good side, right? And then those have a tendency to pick back up because there's a frustration there, right? And I've talked to many of folks over the last couple of years that they did the things, like I was told if I go do this and I do this and I do this, like I'm good, right? The media's
Right.
told me I can make $100,000, bro, and in 3 months I can make $100,000, right? Like I'm great, and but that's not coming true. Like how do we kind of rein it back in to make sure that all these newly trained and small bright people continue for the good guys and just the nefarious hackers.
So Tony, here's my take on that, and I love that question. Circumstances only tend to reveal who we really are, right? And so for the person who has done the right thing and is frustrated because they haven't seen the success that they told they would see, my encouragement to you would be, continue to do the right thing, right? Whatever that right thing is, in your sphere of influence, in your circle, right? There is never a right time to do the wrong thing. There's a movie from years ago, and I don't know if the sentiment is still true, but the line from the movie is, "There's always work at the post office," right? There's always the opportunity to go find something else, and I know time, money, you won't get that back, but you won't be able to undo the damage to your name and credibility if you go over to that proverbial dark side, right? So that's my encouragement on that. I'll say one last thing.
That's a great answer.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that you just dropped some like truth bombs and some knowledge there that good people do good things and bad people do bad things, right? It's just kind of the nature of the beast. And I know it's not always that black and white. I like the sentiment, right? If you're given the skills, and you have it in your heart, maybe you do those things if it's ever an option. But sorry, I didn't directly add one.
No, Tony, this it's a dialogue, man. So
yeah.
I mean, we ping and we pong. So that's speaking to the individual. Let's now talk to the company, the entity, the organization. Stop playing with people, right? There's a number of wonderful people in our ecosystem who, over the last few months, years, have taken to posting, some of the job requisitions at, different companies that say they're looking for cybersecurity talent, right? And there's one lady, her name slips me, but she's really good about, posting the job rec and then kind of dissecting it, right? And what often happens, Tony, is you have companies where it's a entry-level cybersecurity position, right? A junior analyst, but what they're actually looking for, the requirements, right? It's almost like you need a PhD in cybersecurity, in forensics, right? So the organizations, and this is what I love about CyberUp, right? Your partnerships with these local companies, right? That's how we start to undo and unearth some of the opportunities that people are wanting in this space, right? So for the companies, for the decision makers, for HR, write better requisitions, right? Make cyber attainable for people, right? Bring them in, work with them, coach them, let them see what your environment is like from a cybersecurity perspective, and make it real and tangible for them. Stop making it something so lofty and so penthouse that people can't attain it. Right? That's my encouragement to these folks that have the jobs, but they're not filling them because they supposedly can't find the candidate, this unicorn candidate that they're looking for.
The conference and now 25% fall by counter. 25% of all future jobs will not require degrees, right? And I was like, that was a staggering statistic, man. But I think, and I think there are states and organizations across the U.S., right, that are really trying hard to really make the transition to skills-based hiring, because it's a lift, right? Like it requires some creativity. You have to look at deep dive in your job descriptions, and we the organizations here at low success, and then the dividends that are paid are tenfold, right? Are really, they continue to go, and they're tenfold, and the employees are appreciative, the managers are appreciative, the talent acquisition folks. It's such a great experience for everybody because there's a good level set of expectations for those folks. Man, this one, I was having fun in this conversation. We're at the last 3 minutes, Shaun. It goes way faster than
the good things in life always go by quickly, man.
We did have a comment, around just some of the certifications we were talking about. So SIG Lite and SOC 2 Type 2, are great kind of ways that you can assess vendors and things that they're trying to come in. Now, like as a group who's had to do some of those SOC certifications to do some of the contingent workforce stuff with, for apprenticeship, like those are big, tall orders, right? Even, cyber insurance for some of those small to mid-sized companies that you're bringing in to vendors, that's a big, it would be crazy to we'll use Target in the HVAC scenario, right? For Target to verify that HVAC vendor who's never had cyber insurance or need for cyber insurance in their life, that they have that stuff to come in and touch their network, right? So that's we both know cyber insurance is a little bit wild west right now, and the cost is going through things like MGM really help drive costs down for cyber insurance. With some sarcasm, of course.
Yeah.
It is a perfect storm, but I like the idea of some standardization. I'd like to see, maybe some industry specific, the ISACs really kind of create some resources to really help some of these companies. And I think the big ones, and obviously MGM and Caesars, those are really large organizations with an incredible amount of people that probably have resources that, could have done some stuff. And it's, I think indicative that it could happen to anybody at any given time, with a little bit of ingenuity and creativity, right?
Yes.
So the last question is always, what advice would you give for individuals to level up their cybersecurity career?
So excellent question, and I'll be a little biased, right? I think organizations like CyberUp are critical to us being able to bring in that next generation of cybersecurity talent. So don't fail alone, right? Don't lose alone. Look for organizations locally like CyberUp. I'll say this: reach out to folks like Tony and myself on LinkedIn and the other social platforms. We are here to help. This is not a solo ecosystem, right? People enjoy helping each other. Reach out, get the help you need. We're here for each other.
That is a great answer, and I truly appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to get to you for the next several months with class, and for continuing relationships.
Same here,
Thank
Tony.
you for joining today. Thanks to everybody who did. I'll make jump next week. Next week, announce here very soon. Excited always some conversations. So thank you, thank you, and you guys.
Okay. Take care, guys. Thanks.